get this one done a lot quicker than the last time. Although we'll get the draw done anyway, and then you can decide whether you want to listen to who's here. This is me, Kate, Sean, Mike and Jay. You can listen to what we've got to say afterwards about the draw. You can tune in or tune out as you decide. We're not on Facebook this time, so we should avoid too much crucifixion. But anyway, let me explain it to you quick, because I know you're all dying to get on with it. So first of all, we've got Wales. We're going to do Wales as a separate region again. As I've explained to you before, Wales and Shropshire, it's done differently, so we're going to have to do it. So we've got the 8 in Wales tonight. They're going to be drawing, there's your numbers, 1 to 8. They're going to be drawing, so they play down to 4, and then they're going to join on to the 4 from Shropshire. So there'll be 8 left in. Well, there'll be 8 left in every single region, hopefully, at the end of this round is the bottom line on it. So we're going to do that first. We'll put the 8 balls in and take care of that. Then we'll put everything back in the hat and up to 1 to 16, and we'll be drawing the main regions. Can everybody see this board as well here? Probably. Yeah. So we've got this board here, so all the regions have got 16, except there's a few anomalies. You've got Notts, Warwickshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire. All these regions have got 15, 15, 14, etc, etc. So there'll be a couple of buys in this round in those regions. But in the main, everybody's going to be fishing this time. So I think that's pretty much explained how we're going to do the draw. I shall obviously come round the front there, and Katie will get the balls out. We'll come to that when we do it. Okay, so let's load up 8 balls, 1 to 8, shall we? Everybody to see. And we'll get Wales done. So number 1, we got Andy Neal. 2, Ashley Cleves. He fished his last round. 3, Dan Wild. So did he, I believe. He won. 4, Lee Pesticio. 5, Luke Powell. 6, John Harvey. 7, Mikey Williams, and 8, Scott Thomas. So we'll go round and well, shall I go and do it? And do you want to? Who's going to write it down?
You stay where you are.
You write them up, Steve.
Yeah, all right. And for this one, do you want to?
Yep, you can start writing.
You can start just doing the draw for Wales then. Katie knows what she's doing. Here we go.
First one out is number 8.
Scott Thomas, home draw.
Be number 1.
Andy Neal. Mr. Milo.
Number 4.
Number 4, Lee Pesticio. Home draw for you there, Lee.
V7. Number 7.
Mikey Williams. Not their home draw, but it's not like the club draw. Good luck.
Right. Number 2.
Number 2, Ashley Cleves.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
I'm working on it.
I want to fall in.
Go backwards. No, it won't work.
Don't tell me you're going the wrong way.
No, I'm going the right way. It's just hard to catch one.
It's only a big day with you, Kate.
There you go.
There
There we go. Number 6.
Number 6, John Harvey.
Come on.
Yeah.
There we go. Number 3.
Dan Wild.
V. Well, it's just fallen out, but it's number 4, isn't it? No.
5.
5.
And number 5,
Keep going, Kate.
Luke Powell.
I'm just going to put my hand in.
Yeah, no, we're good with that.
There we go. Number 5.
Is Luke Powell. Right, so
Take us through then, Steve.
You what?
Take us through then.
Yes, so first one it's Scott Thomas home to Andy Neal. Second fixture Lee Pesticio v Mikey Williams. Ashley Cleaves is at home to John Harve. And Dan Wild is at home to Luke Powell. So that concludes the draw for the Wales and Shropshire regions anyway for this round. So if we load them all up now, we'll get over to the main draw. I can come round for that, can't I? You want me to... You want me just here to show everybody? No?
You ready?
Yeah.
When you're ready, yeah.
You want me to let Kate do it? Let Kate do it. Right. Looks like I'm out of a job.
Number 10.
Looks like I've just been sacked live. Dad's been sacked.
Stand at the back and look
V
pretty,
number
so-
7.
Stabs at the back and look. I feel sacked. Like a great bird that's been lifted.
Number 12. V number 16.
Oh, right, oh yeah. Interesting ones then. Being pointed out to you already. Who's at home?
Home angler number 2. V number 13. Maybe I should be doing those.
You are?
Maybe I should be doing those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Just
Number 11.
as long as I don't find any insurance policies in my name sticking up over there. Good stuff.
V number 3.
This is quite exciting, isn't it, really? Yeah, Sean's smiling away. Anyway, you know who Jim's got, don't you?
Not yet.
Oh, right.
Number 15.
I do.
Home angler.
We do, don't we, Jan? You shouldn't be laughing like that, that's not fair.
V number 6.
Who's home and away?
That tends to go on holiday and get some sun.
Number 1. Home angler.
Stay tuned if you want to hear our thoughts on what's occurred this evening, and feel free to join in with the comments and pass your opinions, what you think we should be looking at to film and do. And
V number 9.
bear in mind, filming wise, we're looking for places that can accommodate us nice and easily filming wise. We're learning from them. It's almost an impossible job, and we want venues where we can
Home angler number 5.
put up a really good product. This big game machine is busy, isn't it? Oh, no, here we go.
V number 8.
It's a garden gate, number 8. There we go.
Last home angler is number 4.
Now you can have fun getting number 4. No, you're not even going to go, oh, I don't see why
No.
you should, yeah.
And V 14.
Cool, so that's the draw, and now we'll, if you want to hang about, we'll go and talk through everything. If you've seen who you're fishing against, feel free to disappear, and we can now have a good chat about the matchups in each region. So,
Yeah.
come on round, Steve.
Yeah. So what do we got? What do we got, people? I should have all my glasses.
So in Cheshire A, we've got James Howarth versus Gareth Gibbons. We've got Mark Williams versus Wayne Kearney. We've got Ben Summerscales versus Michael Williams. We've got John Vernon versus Colin Duran. We've got Sean Woodward versus David Swain. We've got Alan Bellamy versus Ian Welsh. Dave Brown Jr. versus Ian Burley. Connor Edwards versus Sam Baker. That's Cheshire
Well,
A.
I'm guessing Connor's going to take in at Sam to Old Huff to Melvin's place.
Cheshire B, we've got John Alexander, man of the moment on fire, versus Graham Ramsdale.
Yeah.
Lee Thornton versus Stephen Wright. Chris Weeder Jr. versus Stephen Openshaw.
Well, that's jumping out at me straight away, that is.
John Preedy versus Colin Dunphy. Sean Dalby versus David Pimlott. We've got Andrew Sonley versus James Howarth. We've got David Chesterton, the Giant Slayer, versus Ian Leach. David Brown Sr. versus Ronan Farnell.
Well, I say, Chris Weeder and Steve Openshaw, that's jumping out as a massive fixture that people are going to want to see. That's just like a no-brainer. Chris is at home, isn't he? I guess we're going to Partridge or something. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that one.
Yeah, definitely.
In County Durham, we've got Jonathan Hutchinson versus Ethan Bradley. Kevin Wadge gets a bye.
Wadgy, you lucky bugger.
Andy Ryan is the home angler to Liam Elliott. Kieran Russell to Anthony Stock. Stuart Sexton to Dylan Blythe. Andy Nelson to John Foster. We've got David Hudson to John Dryden. Chris Hours versus Ray Lamb.
Chrissy Owers, last year's finalist.
Derby in Leicestershire, we've got Mark Fox versus Jason Lebosque. Michael Elliott, he gets a bye. David Smith, I don't know what his last name is. Breakwell versus Steve Holt. Mark Richardson versus Gary Rogers. Jake Hemmings gets a bye.
Might be interesting.
Clive Hamilton versus Mark Bower. Jacob Harris versus Luke Bamford. Greg Cooper gets a bye.
Mark Richardson might be a good one. Mark's like getting involved with us with the clothing for the F30 and all that MR angling.
Cool.
And obviously Gary Rogers is on the Flyer TV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that might make for a good, just jumping out at me as possibilities anyway.
In the East, Lee Carver gets George Barker. Stuart Evans gets a bye. Andrew Deering gets Stuart Thornton. Scott Dell gets Brian Derrick. Zach Warby gets Gary Hollick.
Alex Reynolds,
Jack Gill. Yeah. That's a big one, isn't it? We'll have to film that one.
I think you will anyway.
Yeah, obviously we're looking for fixtures we want to film, aren't we?
Yeah.
Daniel Bryden versus Jack DeMant.
Yeah.
Chris Hyde versus Toby Pepper. And then in Lancashire we've got Lewis Mansfield versus Jack Grundy. Mike Rogerson versus Stephen Kovac. Ashley McClements versus Paul Casson. Matty Higgins versus Carl Little. Scott McDermott versus Ellis Lee. Alex Derbyshire versus John Jones. Dave Brown versus Jake Nightingale. Darren Marshall versus Peter Tickle. In Lancashire B, anything jump out here?
Yeah, the fact that we've got 3 Dave Browns in the competition.
Lancashire B, John McNicholas versus Ian Williams. Nathan Stretch versus Will Rimmer. Charlie Law versus Robert Figgins.
Yeah.
Luke Brennan versus Danny Keenan. Steve Barlow versus Franek. I can't even pronounce your surname.
No.
Franek, apologies.
Yeah.
Staniuska. Andy Swift versus Joe McCall. David Coulson versus Jack Howarth. Darren Morris versus Sam Power. In Lincolnshire, we've got Mark Rogers versus Josh Revel. Ryan Lidgard gets a bye. Alfie Potter versus Stephen Havercroft. Matthew Pillay versus Clayton Bowring. Tim Smith versus James Treadgold. And Albie Parker versus Lee Hextall.
Enjoy.
Harvey Parker versus Kevin Drury. George Robinson versus Stephen Hutchinson. North Yorkshire A, we've got Lee Halliwell versus Jack Barwick. Michael Clark versus Stephen Rowe. Brad Lucas versus Robert Harbour. Is Mifsud a double-barrel surname? I've never got
No, no.
Is it Lewis Mifsud?
Mifsud,
Right,
yeah.
right, yes. Versus Craig Edwell. Steve Rogers versus Grant Dunbar. Ben Wetherill versus Josh Sawyer. Darren Thompson versus Jake Moore. And we've got Craig Tidswell versus Ryan Edwards. North Yorkshire B, we've got Lewis Jennings versus Fred Woodhouse. Peter Hopwood versus Stuart Fotheringham. Chris Robson versus Ross Pickles. Luke Hawksworth versus Craig Bennett. Stephen Barakoff versus Dave Wright. Andrew Kidd versus Jamie Cowling. Daniel Doyle versus Jake Gregory. Craig Kent versus Sean Rogers. We're going to film
And it's done out.
No, nothing.
in the Northampton and Cambridgeshire region. The home angler is Jimmy Brooks versus James Wilmot. Max Owen is
Good
at
on
home
you.
to Simon Spinks.
Oh, you know, I into nothing there, Simon. Everybody hates you. Nobody wanted to win. Sure, they can all join in with me and Mike, because we hate you as well.
Andrew Raymond versus Michael Wheeler. Josh Pace versus Ben
Oh,
Bell.
I think that'd be a good one.
Josh and Ben, well, yeah.
Stephen Owen versus Daniel Hardy. Adam Playford versus Jamie Minter. Colin Green versus James Lee Hardy. And Clive Johnson is the home angler to Rob Goodson.
How do you feel about that draw then, Jay?
Well, it's not Castle Ashby.
No,
I think
no.
you'll be fishing rookery.
You'll be a
waters,
rookery again, won't you, mate?
In Nottinghamshire, we've got Liam Hale versus Danny Crew. Roger Sergey gets a bye.
Roger.
Andy
Lucky
Favell
boy.
versus Ryan Laycock. Richard Drake versus Ben Checkley. Tim Booker versus Colin Spencer. Adam Wilde versus Jason White. Brian Sullivan versus Jamie Francis. Ben Smedley versus Stuart McLaughlin. South Central, Pem Writing versus Jimmy Willis.
Right.
Simon Duke gets a bye. Gary Thomas versus Tom Arnott. Perry Stone versus Graham Block. Jason Crump gets a bye. And Flint versus Christian Fields. James Aldridge versus Kev Downer. Greg Victor versus Will Merchant. In the southeast, we have Michael DeZiel versus Jay Martin. Ollie Lashmar versus Zach Brown. Ben Ramsden versus Pete Upperton. Nigel Mills versus Bradley Gibbons. Robert Taylor versus Dean Locke. Alec Bishop versus Martin Fryer. Dan Carey versus John Cook. Colin Fuller versus Richard Patterson. In the southwest, John Hawkins versus Greg Wellsby. Matthew Parsons gets a bye. Andy Power versus Sam Powell. That's a good match, isn't it? John Mills versus Ben Hagg.
It's got Andy Power on it.
Tony Gilbert versus Daniel Squire. Alex Murray versus John McMahon. Craig Edmonds versus Jamie Durrett. Bradley Farrell versus Sam Williams. In South Yorkshire, Michael Prince versus Leon Hardwick. Vicky Guy versus Wayne Radford. Ayrton Radford versus Ollie Stringer. Neil Clark versus David Turton. Tom Scoley versus Jamie Moore. Alan Norrish versus Michael Baxall. Ian Ward versus Les Marshall. Grant Jones versus Rich Clement.
First year's finest, Rich.
In Staffordshire, we've got Gavin Dodd versus Daniel Ballon. Kerry Kirkwood versus Trevor Robinson. Andy Dyson versus Mark Besson. John Smith versus Ash Davies. Steve Hughes versus Dale Jackson. Alan Millwood versus Ewan Farnell. Corey Darlington versus David Mills. And Carl O'Brien versus Martin Steele. In Warwickshire, we've got Aidan Mansfield versus Ian Cross. Andy Christie gets a bye. Philip Canning versus Nathan Jennings. Robert Warwick versus Andy Benwell. John Arthur versus Danny Griffin. Sam Brown versus Jack Shirley. Adam Jennings versus Steve Brindley. And Tony Brooks versus Simon Bowen. In the last region, in Worcestershire, we've got Curtis Trantner versus David Cowan. Matthew Green gets a bye. Andrew Penn versus Rob Wood. Mark Malin versus Ben Suter. Stephen Roberts versus Daniel Hart. And Aaron St. Romain versus Catherine Davies. Dan King versus James Evans. And Carl Lee Hops versus Simon Shaw. A few stick-up matches there, aren't there?
The first thing I'm looking at is Catherine Davis. I could have sworn she got knocked out.
Well, obviously not.
I
She's
think she got a
good.
bye. I think this is the first round she's fishing.
I
I might be thinking of Paula.
think she might be the
Yes.
only lady left in the competition.
Yeah, well, look, that's standing out to me. Good.
I think it is.
I've seen them catching plenty of fish on Facebook, to be fair. Like, I've seen pictures of her all over the shop catching.
Right, do you want to get back in
More
front?
fish than you guys.
Do you want to get back in front of the camera? And if anyone's got any
Yeah.
comments, we can have a few comments,
Yeah. Sorry, mate.
and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, no, well, there's definitely some standout ones, isn't there? Like I say, Chris and Steve Uppenshaw, that's like stands out massively, don't it?
Someone might have commented on that.
We've got lots of comments about Weeder versus Oppo, Baby Weeds versus Oppo, better than the lottery, thank you. Good evening all. Yeah, so yeah, comments coming in, brilliant.
Yeah, well, that's gold dust as far as I'm concerned. That's nearly as good as John and Art, to be honest with you. I reckon we'll be all right with that. There was
Ben and Josh Pace.
yeah, Alex and
Alex
Jack
Reynolds.
Gill, but there was another one, weren't there? I can't remember. Top of my head. Oh, Craig and Sean. Might have the crack there.
Craig Ken.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder where they're going. Woodlands, like.
Right, so everyone's got 4 weekends, yeah?
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Yeah, just to let everybody know what's what, because I should get asked 100 times, won't I? 4 weekends to complete this round, so it needs to be done by Sunday, the 11th of June, and the next draw is obviously the day after the Monday, the 12th. So 4 weekends you've got to complete that, ladies and gentlemen. Good luck, ladies. Yeah. I think that's all everybody needs to know by now, isn't it? It's they've got the draw, they know what's happening. We haven't had to waffle on too long.
No, we'll have a good look at the draw and see where we're going to film.
You'd like to film them all, wouldn't you, if you could? Like, and that's about. But we're working towards that. That's the whole point with the filming. Well, it is, isn't it? That's the whole point. It's making it. We're offering something that was up until now only really available for Fishermania. You know, and you know, once a year at massive expense, obviously, and not feasible. So this is the key to getting more live fishing, isn't it? And we all want that, don't we? Because it's all got to be good for everybody involved.
I think James might be a good one to film.
Who you got?
Adam.
Adam Blayford. Yeah. No, you wouldn't have chose that, would you?
That'd be a good contest, that one, I think.
Oh. Yeah, he would have chosen Adam. In fact, he was like, no problem. Be afraid, be very afraid.
Simon Spinks is on, he's quite happy with young Max.
Oh yeah, well he would. Yeah. Come on.
Go on, Max.
Just.
Yeah, we're cheering Max.
At least I know Max's dad is going to be with him anyway. Right? That's perfectly okay.
John Alexander, Defo Weeds are not about to film.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's gold dust. But we've coming to film you and Art again soon. We were only talking about it yesterday. It's we need to get a big money match sorted out between Art and John. We need to get it set up properly and do it right. You know what I mean? And yeah. It's definitely in the pipeline now. We want more of these, you know what I mean? We want these exciting head-to-head. I thoroughly enjoy it. Although we've got another one Mike did on Saturday, his first sort of real venture into fishing, a feature on Sturt Bracey fishing a match and all that. And this, what is it? Pretty good. No, it's some good stuff on there. I mean, remember, he's only been doing the job a few months. And again, there's some good stuff.
That's live on. No, it's not live. It's on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah, not live, not the same as the live thing, but still obviously a good product and
nice little edited down version.
Yeah, edited down version. It was an easy watch, plenty of float porn, as we say, plenty of floats going under, action replays as well. Like Mike likes his action replay, and so do I. Obviously, we're improving all the while on that. So anyway. That's the draw for this round. If you've got any questions, never mind.
And drop us a line with your favourite matchup and we'll try and get there and film it.
But definitely, there was another one or two, weren't there? I'm sure there was another one that jumped out.
You can get on the phone this week and sort them all out, can't you?
Yeah. Again, remember you people, it's going to be somewhere good. We don't want to be filming over 3 lakes anymore. We don't want to get in a situation where the equipment is limited, without putting hardwiring the whole of Cheshire in.
And try and go to different venues as So we don't want to go to the same venues all the time.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, we want to go to different venues. Well, it's very difficult. We have to set it up between the draw being done and it happening. So, like, not knowing about there's all sorts of things, and we're going to learn by mistakes is what we're going to do, and we're going to make it even bigger and even better and not even more fun. Cool. Winding up. I'm getting told, so I've been sacked again twice in the night. Yeah, been a pleasure. See you soon, ladies and gentlemen.